Outsmart anyone. 5 rules for quiet mastery, the essence of silent power in a world that so often confuses volume with strength. The truly powerful move in an entirely different way. They wait patiently, observe keenly, and strike only at the moment that is inevitable, without warning or fanfare. This approach isn't about cruelty or playing twisted games. It's about mastering subtle tactics that most people ignore. These quiet strategies are so effective they often win the battle before the opponent even realizes a fight has begun. This is more than just a clever strategy. It's a discipline of restraint, clarity of mind, and decisive self-control. Embracing this principle can change how you carry yourself in every situation, how you walk into every room. It is the essence of silent power. In a society where noise is mistaken for strength, silence becomes the language of the truly powerful. Those who shout the loudest often reveal the most fear, and those who rush to threaten expose their own insecurity. Meanwhile, the one who holds their tongue, who lets their mere presence speak, moves with a confidence that cannot be borrowed or faked. Their power does not need to be advertised. It simply is. This quiet confidence forms the foundation of strategic mastery, not through loud declarations, but through deliberate stillness. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this truth long before our modern era of boardrooms and social media. He knew that empires are rarely forged by brute force alone, but by the art of hiding one's true intentions until the perfect moment. It was the art of psychological concealment, knowing when to reveal yourself and when to remain unseen. Real power, after all, doesn't announce itself. It doesn't flinch in the face of insult or beg to be noticed. Instead, it moves in shadows, staying multiple steps ahead while others stumble over the step right in front of them. The person who no longer needs to prove anything is the person who already proves everything by their mere existence. Understand this. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a weapon, a deliberate provocation that unsettles those who cannot comprehend it. Your quietude becomes a mirror, forcing others to wrestle with their own imagination. This is the subtle trick. The less you reveal, the more others must confront their own minds. You do not yell, you do not chase. By staying composed and giving nothing away, no emotional reactions, not even a hint of frustration, you leave your opponent with nothing to latch onto but their own uncertainties. Such restraint is not born overnight. It is forged over time, tempered by trials and failures, by moments of humiliation that teach hard lessons, and by long hours learning to sit with tension instead of immediately relieving it. Each time you resist the urge to snap back or defend yourself, you are sharpening that hidden blade of composure. With this patience comes a remarkable power, the power of not needing to respond. You carry your stillness quietly, like a concealed weapon. Others may wonder endlessly what you are, thinking what you might do, while you have already observed them closely enough to know what they will likely do next. This is the essence of Stoic control, not the absence of action, but the absolute control over the timing and choice of action. The world quietly rewards those who can resist the impulse to show their hand too soon. Walk into a room with this kind of calm, and you will find that people turn to look without quite knowing why. They sense a mystery, a presence that does not demand attention but naturally draws it. Respect precedes you, arriving long before you utter a single word. This is not intimidation by shouting or intimidation at all in the ordinary sense. This is command by presence. So let others talk themselves in circles. Let them doubt you or question your silence. Let them gossip, theorize, and wonder. You have no obligation to answer their questions or to justify yourself. Instead, you continue building your strength and your plans quietly, deliberately, and without seeking anyone's approval, because once you have mastered the art of silence, you have essentially mastered yourself. And when you have full mastery over your own mind and reactions, you become untouchable in a profound way. There is nothing left for anyone to use against you. Your silence has disarmed them, and your inner calm has become an unassailable fortress. Master perception. Own the moment in every clash, whether it's a conversation, a competition, or a confrontation. Victory often goes not to the one with truth on their side, but to the one who can shape what others believe. Perception is the real battleground. People rarely respond to reality itself. They respond to the image of reality that is presented to them. Niccolo Machiavelli observed that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. In other words, people judge by what they see and perceive, rather than by the underlying truth that they cannot see. Few will ever know your true intentions, but everyone will notice your demeanor, your composure or your panic, your confidence or your doubt. If you can master how you appear, you gain the upper hand before a single move is made. That it's not really about being right, and it's not even about being the strongest. In fact, it's about appearing composed, focused, and unshakable, especially in moments when you inwardly feel anything but calm. When others witness you remaining steady in the midst of chaos, they naturally begin to question their own footing. That brief hesitation in them, that flicker of uncertainty when they see your calm, is your silent victory. That a wise strategist understands this dynamic intuitively. Control over yourself translates into influence over others. Emotional chaos within you will only repel power, but inner stillness radiates authority. This is why the shrewd individual doesn't rush to speak or interrupt. They watch and listen. They do not flinch at insults, but absorb them impassively. Often they will let others speak first and at length, not out of politeness, but to quietly gather information and let their rivals reveal their own weaknesses. Such a person has no need to raise their voice to be heard. They win by allowing others to expose themselves, then calmly using those very words or mistakes as leverage later. This is disciplined strategy, not cruelty or trickery for its own sake. It's the art of shaping perception in a world governed by perception. You usually don't need to publicly crush an opponent. You only need to make sure they begin to look unstable or uncertain, while you remain the picture of stability. Remember, we live in a society obsessed with optics. The one who stays serene under pressure is immediately seen as wise and trustworthy. The quiet one in the room is assumed to be quietly calculating something important. The person who holds their peace while everyone else is arguing or panicking is often exalted in the minds of observers, sometimes even to a legendary status. None of this means you are being deceptive for no reason. You are practicing strategic restraint. The truth may be on your side, but it won't speak for itself if you lose your composure. You don't always need to prove your point outright. You need to shape how others see the situation. Let your adversaries rant and rage. Let them over-explain themselves and put on theatrical displays. All the while, you remain calm and unmoved, the still presence that unnerves amid their storm. Ultimately, lasting power doesn't belong to the loudest voice or even to the person who is objectively right. It belongs to the one who can control the story that everyone believes. And the most powerful story of all isn't told with words. It's told with your behavior and bearing. It's seen in the steadiness of your hands, in the clarity of your gaze, in the relaxed confidence of your stance. In a world hungry for drama, the individual who refuses to leap into the spotlight creates an aura of mystery and strength. And when you reach that point, when your very presence silently commands respect, you find you no longer need to fight to prove anything. You become the quiet force in the room that no one wants to challenge directly. Shape the field, set the terms often. The smartest way to win a conflict is not to charge headlong into it, but to change the very playing field on which it is fought. A direct confrontation might feel bold, but it can trigger equal force in return, stirring up ego, resistance, and chaos. True power usually does not pit strength against strength. Instead, it patiently works around opposition, quietly reshaping the situation until the adversary is unknowingly fighting on a battlefield you designed. This is the silent genius of controlling the environment. The ancient Stoics taught us to focus on what we can control, and while you cannot reach into someone's mind to alter their thoughts, you can often change the conditions in which their mind operates. So rather than trying to force a person to change their nature or will, you alter the space and circumstances through which they must move. Think of conflict as a game of chess. The goal is not to annihilate every opposing piece. It's to control the board. You don't need to eliminate your opponent outright if you can influence the timing, the terrain, and the available moves so well that they begin to defeat themselves. A rescheduled meeting here, a quiet change of access there, the subtle removal of a key ally on their side. All these minor shifts send ripples through your opponent's strategy. Before they fully realize what has changed, they find themselves reacting not with confidence, but with confusion, fatigue, and a growing list of mistakes. Unbeknownst to them, they are now playing your game. This isn't deception for deception's sake. It's influence by design. Environmental manipulation isn't about publicly humiliating anyone or making a dramatic show of power. It's about erosion, slowly wearing down the support beneath your rival's feet. You adjust the frame of the situation so completely that your adversary's moves are guided by the limits you've quietly set. They start acting according to your rhythm, not their own. Consider how seasoned negotiators or wise leaders operate. They rarely need to shout or issue ultimatums. Instead, they arrange conditions so that the only obvious choice left is the one that favors their objectives. They guide conversations to certain topics, set deadlines that create pressure at just the right moments, or introduce ideas at times when they will be most readily accepted. In doing so, they shape decisions before anyone even realizes by the time the other side becomes aware that the situation has shifted, the outcome is already tipping in your favor. The beauty of this approach is that it achieves results without brute force, through the quiet rearrangement of reality itself. The battlefield of life is seldom a physical place. It is the set of rules, options, and contexts in which interactions play out. If you can mold that battlefield with patience, foresight, and restraint, you do not need to control other people directly. You need only control the paths that lie before them. When every road your opponent can take leads to an outcome you've planned or can handle, you win without ever drawing your sword. This subtle mastery is the highest form of dominance, not an obvious domination of another person's will, but a mastery over the very structure within which they operate. It is a victory so ingeniously arranged that it feels almost like fate to those who succumb to it, when in truth it was your design all along. The strength in being underestimated. We live in a world where many feel the need to constantly project strength and dominance, to roar like a lion so everyone knows their power. But there is a quieter, more cunning path. Sometimes the most dangerous move is to wear a mask of meekness. To appear harmless is not a flaw at all. It is often a weapon, honed by the truly wise. The Stoics teach that a sage does not announce his strength. He keeps it under control, revealing it only when necessary. Likewise, Machiavelli pointed out that the predator who loudly proclaims themselves invites caution and fear, but the one who appears to limp along, to apologize, or to play the fool invites carelessness. In carelessness, opportunities quietly spring to life. Feigning weakness does not make you weak. Instead, it shows you have mastered the rhythm of perception. You are essentially lulling your environment into a false sense of security, all while you keenly observe and prepare. You're not surrendering in any way. You are setting the stage. You're not being submissive. You are silently drawing your opponent's arrogance into the light. When they believe they are above you, they stop guarding the things that truly matter. This is not cowardice on your part. It is composure with a purpose. You are letting your adversary move first, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. A sword drawn too soon can be dulled or turned aside in the wrong battle. True power is patient, waiting just beneath the surface, cloaked in humility, until the precise moment when a gentle touch achieves more than a mighty swing. Those trained in Stoic endurance. Conquering oneself is the ultimate victory. The person who can hold back even when provoked, who can play the fool with a clear goal in mind, often ends up controlling not only the immediate conflict, but also the narrative that follows after it. Machiavelli wrote that a capable ruler must know how to be both the lion and the fox. The lion roars and shows strength. The fox retreats quietly only to reemerge with a decisive advantage. When you pretend to yield or to step back, you are not truly giving up anything. You are redirecting the flow of events. You allow your opponent to believe for a moment that they have won or that you have given in. In that comforting illusion, they drop their guard and feel safe. Arrogance can blind more effectively than anger or hate, and those blinded by overconfidence step into traps they would have avoided had they continued to respect you as an equal threat. So let them underestimate you. Let them laugh or dismiss you. Let them carry on thinking they are safe and superior. Meanwhile, your silence is not a sign of defeat. It's a matter of timing. Your delay in reacting is not indecision. It is part of your design. And when the opportune moment arrives, you strike, yet not in anger or with wild fury, but with clarity and precision. You strike not at the well-guarded front they expect, but at the unprotected flank they've left open to be by the time they realize what has happened. it is already too late. Feigning weakness is, in truth, about shaping the story in your favor all along. It's the highest form of strategic patience, and when executed properly, victory is achieved not by sheer force, but by the quiet recognition that you had effectively won long before the battle even began. Finish it. The power of decisiveness. There comes a time when conflict cannot be avoided or drawn out any further. When that moment arrives, true mastery demands that you bring it to a swift and definite close. Half measures and partial resolutions do not secure peace. They merely delay the next round of trouble. A rival who is only wounded or partially defeated will not simply retreat quietly. They may withdraw temporarily, nursing their wounds and their humiliation, letting it fester into an obsession for revenge. Machiavelli warned that if you strike at an opponent, you must be sure to leave them no chance to strike back. If you attack but leave your enemy with their dignity, their supporters, or even the slightest illusion that they still have some strength, you have not ended the conflict at all. You have merely paused it, setting the stage for it to flare up again later. Understand that this approach is not about cruelty for cruelty's sake. Instead, it is about achieving a lasting peace by providing closure. Think of it as an act of mercy in the long run. A clean end is often kinder than a drawn-out feud. The Stoic philosophers remind us that showing mercy without giving clarity, without truly resolving the issue, is not a virtue but a form of negligence. Neglecting to thoroughly resolve a conflict leaves a smoldering fire that can burst back into flames when you least expect it. In the realm of power dynamics, the most dangerous enemy is the one who is left with something to prove and time to brood over it. Pain left unresolved transforms into fixation, and that fixation fuels the desire for retaliation. So what might feel like restraint on your part, holding back from finishing the confrontation, may actually be planting the seeds of a future problem. This is why genuine dominance, the kind that doesn't need to be constantly reasserted, demands finality. It demands that when you do choose to confront, you finish it so decisively that there are no lingering doubts or open wounds that can reopen later. When you strike metaphorically, do it with such completeness that there is no sequel to the confrontation. Now, finishing a conflict decisively doesn't necessarily mean causing physical destruction or cruelty. Often it means achieving psychological closure. It means removing the person's influence, cutting off their access to resources or allies, and ending their ability to affect your story. You tie up every loose end so they have no thread to pull you back into a conflict. In personal situations, finishing it might mean walking away entirely, silent, distant, and without apology or further explanation. You give no dramatic farewell for them to latch onto, no note of bitterness that keeps the connection alive, only a quiet departure that leaves no door open for them to follow. In business or politics, it might mean outmaneuvering not just the individual rival, but also weakening their entire support network until their influence fades on its own without you having to publicly destroy them. Such decisiveness is an act of discipline. It reflects the Stoic belief in controlling what you can, most of all, the ending of a scenario that you have the power to shape. When it comes to conflict, the one aspect fully in your control is often how you choose to end it. Let your final action or word be so clear and resolute that it echoes louder than any threat could. Make it swift, clean, and unemotional. Do not linger to gloat over your victory. Do not broadcast your triumph for applause. Simply end the conflict and let your decisive action speak for itself. This approach sends a powerful message that challenging you carries a cost, and that cost is absolute. The truly untouchable individuals are those who leave no loose ends. They do not fight the same battle twice. They do not allow an enemy, once defeated, to recover and try again. If you offer a second chance to someone who was intent on undermining you, they may interpret your mercy as weakness. Practice decisive action not from a place of anger or malice, but from a place of wisdom and the desire for true peace. By finishing conflicts completely, you ensure that they will not rise again to trouble you. You protect not just a victory in the moment, but your lasting freedom from that conflict thereafter. Ultimately, the greatest power lies in not only winning, but in closing the chapter so thoroughly that it never needs to be reopened. That is not just victory. It is liberation from future strife, the kind of irreversible closure that lets everyone move on. It is a clear line drawn that says, this issue is over, and there is nothing more to be said or done about it. That clarity is a gift to you and even, in a way, to the one you defeated, because it frees both of you from an endless cycle of retribution. The psychological mirror. Letting fear reflect consider a form of power that does not come from shouting, threats, or brandishing weapons, but from simply being a calm, steady presence that forces others to face themselves. This is the power of the psychological mirror, a strategy of reflection rather than retaliation. The Stoics have always taught that control over others begins with control over oneself. Machiavelli understood that the deepest and most lasting kind of fear is not one you enforce with a sword, but one you awaken within an opponent's own mind. True fear is seldom imposed from the outside. It is born from within. When you raise your voice and threaten someone directly, their natural reaction is to put up defenses and resist you. But when you maintain calm and silence in the face of conflict, something different happens. The other person is left alone with their thoughts. They start to wonder what you are thinking, what you are planning, what might happen next. In the absence of answers, their imagination fills the gap, and often people's own imaginations can conjure far more troubling scenarios than anything you could explicitly threaten. Using the psychological mirror means you let people project their fears onto your silence. You provide no confirmation or denial to ease their mind. You simply remain present, unshaken and unreadable. Every calm glance, every measured pause, every moment where you do nothing at all becomes a blank canvas onto which they will paint their own anxieties. The human mind finds uncertainty almost unbearable. We crave resolution, and when we don't get it, our thoughts can become our own worst enemy. This strategy is not about cruelty. It's about discipline and self-control. You understand that often when a person panics or grows fearful, they are not reacting to what you have actually done, but to the story they are telling themselves about what you might do. Machiavelli advised leaders to cultivate a reputation that suggests they are capable of significant consequences, even if those consequences never actually come to pass. The mere possibility, he noted, can be more effective than any tangible action. Fear rooted in someone's imagination has no limit. They might envision outcomes far more dire than reality. When you hold your silence, you refuse to give them a clear target or a clear answer. This lack of clarity can be more unsettling than any threat because it leaves them with only their own inner voice, which can become deafening with worried in a reactive world. Your stillness is deeply disconcerting. If you don't respond to provocations, you do not validate them. If you don't retaliate when attacked, you give no direction for their next move. Lacking direction, their fear turns inward and begins to amplify itself. They may start seeing ghosts of consequences where none exist. Every quiet second from you might feel to them like a heavy, unspoken sentence. Every polite nod or neutral expression might be interpreted as a sign of something ominous to come. Thus, you become powerful not by what you actively do to others, but by what you allow them to do to themselves. You simply hold up the mirror of your calm and let their own conscience and insecurity do the rest. When they look into this metaphorical mirror, they ultimately see their own reflection, their own guilt, their own doubts, their own unresolved conflicts rising to the surface. Your silence just gives those inner demons space to speak. The essence of the psychological mirror is that you do not rule through fear you instill. You allow others to conjure fear from within their own hearts. And fear that arises internally is the hardest kind to escape. It will follow them into quiet moments, into their sleepless nights, into every space where your name or presence is felt. Even if you are not physically there. In the end, it is not brute force that makes you untouchable. It is the power of restraint and ambiguity. By refusing to be drawn into petty reactions, you become an enigma. And in that enigma, others find the uncertainty that makes them hesitate. Your silence and self-possession become a sanctuary of strength for you, and ironically, a source of discomfort for those who would oppose you. It's a gentle form of influence that echoes the adage, "The fiercest warriors are not those who yell the loudest, but those who can stand silently and let the situation reveal itself." Patience as a superpower let us reflect on a form of strength that is rarely celebrated in our fast-paced world, yet it is the quiet force that wins battles before they begin. Patience. We live in a time intoxicated by speed, instant communication, immediate gratification, quick reactions. In such an environment, patience is not just a virtue, it is a revolutionary act of power. Machiavelli understood something fundamental that echoed the wisdom of the Stoics. Time, when used wisely, is more formidable than any weapon. Those who are truly wise do not rush headlong into every battle or argument. They do not seek immediate validation or strike hastily just because they have been provoked. Instead, they wait. They observe. They calculate. They recognize that the one who controls the timing of events often controls the outcome. Many people mistake urgency for effectiveness. They demand answers now, results now, revenge now. But acting out of urgency often clouds judgment and burns up our energy on futile gestures. Urgency can be the enemy of clarity, causing us to react in ways that actually play into the hands of an opponent or into the chaos of circumstance. True strategy, by contrast, often involves resisting this pull of immediacy when others shout. The patient person stays quiet, When others lunge forward in haste, the patient person steps back and watches. And when someone tries to corner you or pressure you into a quick reaction, you let them believe they have the upper hand until, in their overconfidence, they overextend themselves. In this way, time becomes your ally. It reveals truths that were hidden, exposes weaknesses that were once concealed, and magnifies the mistakes of those who act rashly. An enemy who assumes you are retreating out of weakness will likely grow careless and arrogant. And arrogance, much like a slow-growing rust, will eat away at their defenses from within. Understand that patience is not the same as passivity. It is not an action born of fear. It is deliberate an action born of poise and strategy. Patience is the clearest sign that you have mastered yourself, that you are not a slave to the impulses of anger or the demands of someone else's timeline. The Stoics often spoke of self-command, the ability to remain steady under pressure. Machiavelli turned this concept into method. He rarely struck first. Instead, he let time do much of the work for him. He would watch his adversaries become unsettled, divided by their own doubts or mistakes, and often by the time he took action, his victory was almost a formality, a simple, precise move made. When the moment was ripe, why not squandering your energy on every provocation? You preserve your strength for the moments when it truly matters. To delay action is not to concede defeat. It is often to open your eyes wider. To wait is not to run away. It is to choose your own timing for when to engage. In the space between an event and your response lies a blade that is sharper than any immediate reaction could be. Slow your pace just enough to fall beneath the noisy radar of those who are sprinting without direction. In that calmer state, you will notice details that others miss. While they exhaust themselves chasing quick wins on the surface, you will discern deeper patterns and fault lines developing underneath. And then, when your patience has drawn out the vulnerabilities you needed to see, when their support has weakened and their clarity is blurred, that is when you act. Not in anger, but in certainty. Not to punish in the heat of the moment, but to end things on your terms. That is how patience wins battles that the world may not even realize were being fought. By the time a patient person acts, outsiders might be surprised at how effortlessly victory was achieved. What they do not see are the countless moments of restraint, observation, and preparation that led up to that point. In the final measure, the one who can wait out the storm gains the power to decide when it's truly over. The one who holds the clock holds the control of the narrative, deciding not only how to fight, but when the fight is finished, the power of strategic distance sometimes. The most potent strategy is not about what you do directly to an adversary, but what you quietly take away. Machiavelli, echoing a principle the Stoics also knew, recognized that power is often less about the strength an opponent has in themselves and more about who and what stands behind them. In other words, an enemy bolstered by a loyal network, resources, and momentum is formidable. But if those supports fall away, even a strong opponent can weaken quickly. Strategic distance is the art of creating isolation. It is not about storming in and publicly shaming someone, nor is it about dramatic confrontations that might rally sympathy for them. Instead, it is a subtle and patient removal of the pillars that prop a person up. Think of it as gently pulling out the threads that hold a tapestry together, rather than tearing it to shreds in front of everyone. As long as someone has others cheering them on or standing by their side, they will feel bold and confident. But if the room gradually empties, if allies drift away, if once eager supporters grow silent, then even the mightiest figure can start to feel uncertain. Isolation by itself can do much of the work that direct confrontation seeks to accomplish. How do you create this strategic distance? It starts with small, quiet moves. You might slowly sow seeds of doubt in the minds of their allies, not through blatant accusations, but through subtle questions and gentle whispers. Let a bit of tension or distrust grow among your opponent's supporters, causing tiny cracks in their unity without ever attacking them outright. Over time, those cracks can widen on their own. Also, choose carefully where to withdraw your own presence or support. Sometimes, simply not being available at key moments can weaken an opponent. If they rely on certain resources or allies, and you have influence there, you can quietly encourage those resources to be less accessible. A delayed response here, a scheduling conflict there, a quiet suggestion to a mutual friend to step back. Such minor shifts can unsettle your adversary's footing. One by one, the supports they take for granted begin to waver, often not with a loud break, but with a quiet absence. As these pillars of support disappear or become unreliable, your adversary will sense the change. Perhaps they notice delays in responses from friends, coolness in tone, or the lack of enthusiastic backup that they once enjoyed. That is when the seed of doubt is planted deeply. Even a confident person can begin to second-guess themselves when they feel their backing erode. They might find themselves asking, "Where is everyone who used to stand with me?" Or, "Why does it feel like I'm more alone in this fight than before?" By the time your opponent looks around and realizes they are standing alone, you have already won the most important part of the battle without raising your voice. You haven't had to break them by force. You allowed separation and doubt to do it quietly. The final move, if one is even needed, can be almost anticlimactic. There is no need for a grand confrontation in the public square. Such drama might only earn them sympathy. Instead, any final negotiation or confrontation happens on your terms, at a time of your choosing, when they are isolated and unsure. Without a crowd or a crew to back them up, they have little fight left to offer. There is no need to trumpet their defeat or ruin their reputation loudly. In fact, it can be far more effective to let them slowly fade from relevance than to create a spectacle of their loss. Remember, noise fades quickly, but quiet influence endures. The difference between a noisy victory and a quiet one is that noise is fleeting. It grabs attention and then is gone, whereas quiet power settles in and remains in the end. Real dominance doesn't come from overpowering someone in a single loud duel. It comes from ensuring that when the dust settles, no one is left willing or able to oppose you. When an adversary has no allies to rally them, and when their own confidence has crumbled, the conflict is over before any dramatic final blow is needed. This way of removing support and creating distance teaches a broader lesson. In life, you do not need to be the loudest voice to be influential. Often, the most influential person is the one who moves thoughtfully, with clarity, restraint, and purpose. Power isn't about shouting others down. It's about managing the flow of events. And frequently that process begins with managing yourself. When you stop reacting emotionally and start observing strategically, you alter the very dynamics of the game you are playing. Let patience be your armor and silence be your sword. By preserving your inner peace and focusing on quiet, strategic moves, you guard what is most sacred, your own equilibrium and clarity of mind. In doing so, you become the person who doesn't need to raise their voice to be heard. Your actions, and sometimes your deliberate inaction, speak volumes on your behalf. All these principles, silence, perception, strategic planning, calculated patience, and self-control, woven together form a tapestry of quiet mastery. The path of quiet dominance is not about cruelty or domineering behavior for its own sake. It's about achieving great outcomes with minimal strife and drama. It's about moving through life with a calm sense of purpose, influencing the world around you in subtle yet profound ways that, in the end, the greatest victory isn't just outsmarting or overpowering another person. It is conquering your own impulses and fears so thoroughly that real peace and authentic power radiate from you. When you walk this path of internal mastery, moving in silence, with confidence and purpose, you often find you rarely need to engage in open conflict at all. Others will sense the quiet strength in you and will think twice about challenging it. Obstacles diminish, and many battles are resolved before they even begin, simply because of how you carry yourself. This is the art of quiet, internal mastery. By maintaining serenity and control within, you change the way events unfold around you. And when you achieve that inner mastery, you have already won the most important battle of all, the battle over yourself, from which all other victories naturally flow.